what if that person that you're with or that family that you're with, they're just waiting for somebody else to make the move, and you're the one that says, okay, we're going to go to this mass at this time in this city, and they come or they don't come, right? But they're seeing that. Oh, where Adam and Maureen and the kids? Oh, they went to mass, right? Mm-hmm. They see that.
All right, we're back again here at Transfiguration in idyllic Oakdale. We have with us tonight Adam and Jeff. Not because we cut Matt from the lineup, but he just couldn't make it tonight. Family called. Tonight we are going to talk about vacations. It is getting to that time of year, and hopefully we'll be able to actually take some vacations this summer if some states open or other places open. But we want to talk tonight about vacations. What does it look like to take a Catholic vacation? Is there such thing as a Catholic vacation, or do we just go out to Disney World every single year? Or do we take a pilgrimage to a Catholic site every single year? What does that look like? How do we go on vacations? What are some of the things that we should think about when we go on vacations? And how can we be a witness when we go on vacations, not only to our families, but to the culture around us, and what does that look like? So, guys, I wanted to talk about this personally because Shelly and I are trying to plan a vacation, and we're hoping to go to the Ozarks in Arkansas. There's just things that we have to think about when we take vacation. So we're thinking about a couple things. One, how do we get there and still go to Mass? We want to go backpacking. And then what are the places we can actually go to Mass? And what are we going to do as a family? So, like, what's the point of vacation? Why do we even take vacations? Shouldn't we just stay at our house? What does our summer look like if we're not doing that? So what is the good of vacations? And maybe you guys just want to talk about your own personal vacation, something you like, or the way you discern what's the point of vacations for your own family, and why do you choose where you go?
Yeah, I think vacation is, I guess, at least twofold. One, to get away. I think a lot of times having a change of scenery makes it a little bit easier to have a change in the way that your mind functions. Out of sight, out of mind type thing. You're not thinking about work. You're not thinking about your lawn or all your house projects. Just getting away from it helps relax your mind a little bit. But then also for us, having kids, allowing them to see different parts of the world, even if that's just different parts of this country, and gaining a different perspective, seeing how other people live, seeing the scenery, the beautiful places that God has built for us to visit. I think it's important for families also to take that time to be together away from the hustle and bustle, and a lot of times because of the way we are, our human nature, that requires us to leave our homes.
Yeah, I think I agree wholeheartedly with that you do need to get I'm not going to say get away from everything, but get away from the housework and the chores, and have some time for relaxation, and doing it whether with your spouse or with your family entirely, or even if you're fortunate enough to take an extended family vacation. But yeah, I think it allows everybody just to kind of hit the reset button, kind of realign with what you as a family are trying to do, or whatever it may be. But yeah, I think just having time to just spend quality time away from the house is beneficial in the short term and the long term, because it gives you memories that you can look back on and reflect on, and
shared experiences, right?
Such a millennial thing to say, is focusing on your experiences rather than items and gifts.
Yeah, but at the same time, I actually love it. I would much rather have an experience of going to Glacier National Park than having a nicer bike or having stuff at my house. And it allows, like Adam said, it allows for our brains to kind of reset, our bodies, our excitement for, maybe even our excitement for work. So what are the kind of the non-negotiables? What are the things you guys think about when you take a vacation? I'll get us started here. So for the Cordum family, a vacation is a kind of 2 or 3-fold at least. The first thing is we want to, at our house at least, we want to experience beauty. So one of the things that I loved about taking vacations as a kid is we would go to places of nature. We would go to the mountains or we would go to the lake. We didn't take a lot of vacations as a kid. We didn't have a lot of money. We went to a cabin every once in a while. But when I got a little older and I was able to drive with buddies or whatever, we would go to Colorado and visit my brother out in Colorado. And there was always a connection with kind of the generosity and the ridiculousness of God in creating all these incredible landscapes. So for me, getting on top of a mountain just, helps me realize, like, man, God created all this just for me to see this and to experience it. So there's part of like experiencing America or the rest of the world. I think we got to get outside of our boxes a little bit. If we lived in Oakdale our entire lives, it might be nice and green in the summer and cold and dreary in the winter, but we wouldn't really experience other places, other people, other historical things. And I'll be honest, I'm not really a historical person. However, I do foresee, maybe reading a couple more plaques when I'm out on vacation with kids or other people. So one of the tenets is always to see beauty. So finding other places in our country that are just incredibly beautiful and visiting other places where there's different cultures, there's different type of people, there's different types of foods. I'll never go to a place and just eat the same old stuff that I'm eating regularly. And that's definitely not like a exclusively Catholic thing, but I just think it gives our kids a little culture, and just even ourselves, it gives maybe even our palate a little more culture. But I'm not going to go to like Applebee's, no offense to Applebee's. I'm not going to Applebee's if I'm going to Kansas City or something. I'm going to get some barbecue, whatever it is. So that's one of the things we want to see beauty. One of the definite non-negotiables, and this is definitely a Catholic thing, is we got to go to Mass. So even like I'm looking at flights, and if a flight or whatever is not going to allow us to go to Mass, that flight is off the table, or if even driving somewhere is not going to allow us to celebrate Mass on a Sunday, that drive is off the table. So we either fly on a Saturday or a Friday evening, or if we are flying on a Sunday, I make sure that the wherever we're going has a parish that's going to either have an early Mass or a late Mass or something that we can actually go. And just a word to the wise, don't always rely on the websites of those parishes. Give them a quick call and say, like, hey, do you actually have Mass at 6 p.m. on Sunday night or 8 p.m. or 7 a.m. or whatever it is? But that's definite non-negotiable for us. And I think it's beautiful to see other churches. There's amazing, beautiful churches around our country, and it's really cool to have our kids see those different places. You can always come to Transfiguration and you're going to see a beautiful church, but I mean, even 10 miles away we have the cathedral, which is gorgeous. Pope Emeritus Benedict said the Cathedral of St. Paul is the most beautiful cathedral he's seen in the United States. So we have this gorgeous cathedral. Maybe even take a staycation and go to the cathedral every once in a while. So those are kind of, for us, the non-negotiables. We want to see beauty, experience a little bit of history and culture, and then we have to go to Mass. Like it's just a non-negotiable. I remember going to a buddy's cabin, and it was on Leech Lake, and the cabin itself was on an island, so we had to take a boat to get there. And I remember me and my buddy, who are Catholic, he came into the church. I was his sponsor. But, we had to get on that boat, this teeny little boat with a teeny little motor, all dressed up in our church clothes, and boat across the lake 15 minutes and then drive into church and then boat across the lake back. And, that's just what you do. And I, not everyone that was on that trip with us was Catholic, but at least they saw that was something we're going to take seriously in our lives, even if it meant 30-minute boat rides and driving a little extra. What do you think about when you're planning a vacation?
I think some of that depends on whether or not you bring in kids. A lot of our vacations with the kids are just up to the cabin. It gets to be obviously cost prohibitive to take them all with you, especially if you're flying somewhere. But I mean, even going to the beach, right? Like, I think every single vacation is centered around like the visual aspect of it, right? Like, people go to the beach because the beach is beautiful and it's relaxing, right? It's different than Minnesota, right? Like, people that live in Daytona Beach, Florida, they're probably not going to Mexico or the Bahamas for their vacations because they already basically have that, right? Like, so we go places where it's nice year-round because we have winter here and it snows and it gets freezing cold. So we go places that aren't like Minnesota or have different beautiful aspects to them that we can't enjoy in Minnesota year-round. So obviously that's one of the considerations. I think for me personally, one of the considerations is more or less the ease of the vacation. Like, I'm going on vacation to get away from work and stress to some extent. So I don't want to go someplace that's going to be more taxing on me than just being home.
You mean you don't want to drive around San Francisco on your vacation?
Yeah, or Seattle or D.C. But I think
no offense to anyone in those cities. We love y'all, but holy cow.
Who was the nun that started EWTN, or she was very prominent on EWTN? She just died a handful of years ago, but she had
everyone is yelling at their radios right now.
Mother Angelica?
Mother Angelica.
Yeah. She had a comment on one of her shows about how she doesn't understand how all these people go on vacation, and then when they get home, they need a vacation from their vacation, and that's exactly what I'm trying to avoid. I want my vacation to recharge me so when I come back, I'm ready to work, I'm ready to tackle my stuff at home. And if you're not, I think it's very easy to like overpack your vacations. Got to cram as much stuff into this vacation as possible because I only have 7 days or 5 days or whatever it is. But for me, it's very important to make sure that the vacation is rejuvenating, that it's something that's recharging me, that I'm receiving something from the vacation, that I'm not just like taking stuff from the vacation.
So if you're taking kids, how do you do that? Because we all know when you're adding kids to a different schedule, it's quite taxing to be charitable for 7 days when they might be a little irritable. Or maybe your kids are perfect. I don't know.
Again, I think it's different for different people. Like, I would never, ever, ever take my kids on the vacations that you go on, Justin. Not in a million years. Like, I don't have the patience for that. Some people have a different threshold for that kind of what I would consider pain. But for me and my family, like, if we're going to go, like a couple years ago, we went to North Carolina. We only had 2 kids at that point, but we rented a condo with Maureen's parents and some of her family, and we just parked it on the beach for a week. And that's fine. It doesn't have to be this big ordeal. Just being there and being with family is nice, right? And it doesn't have to be this big, extravagant, fit everything you possibly can into an experience, right? I mean, I think you have to focus on why you're there instead of, I think a lot of times we have this tendency to be consumers all the time, right? Like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? Okay, I'm bored with this. Let's go do the next thing, you know. I think having, from the outset of the planning process even, just having it in your mind that what the goal of the vacation is, and it's not for us. It's not to cram as much into it as possible.
Yeah, that's good. Do you, all of our kids are fairly young, and both of you have commented about, like, kind of getting away. It's a time to get away. It's time to relax. Do you foresee yourselves doing some detachment from screens or whatever else? If your kids are going to have those things on vacation, are they going to be turned off while you're at the beach or driving, or how are you going to deal with that?
Yeah, so from a standpoint of, we've taken 2 vacations with our kids, and I say that because we've taken probably 4 to 5 vacations as spouses, and a lot of those have tied with work trips. But from a standpoint of with kids, I mean, the one trip we did take was a driving trip. So we had a lot of books. Berenstain Bears went rampant at the Morgan minivan.
It's Berenstain.
Thanks for the correction.
Oh, snap. Word.
No, so from a standpoint of when we're in the car and we have a little bit more control over what's going on, the screens are a non-issue. We don't have a tablet or phones for the kids or anything. It's audiobooks or actual books or colors or whatever it may be. But from a standpoint of the one trip we did take on an airplane, you better believe we got them the headphones and put on it was Frozen or one other the other videos on Delta Studio, and the kids kind of zoned out for the 2.5 3 hour flight, and away we went.
I think that actually works pretty well though. So in our house, because our children's behavior suffers significantly if they have a lot of screen time, they just don't really watch TV. They don't have a tablet or anything. Like maybe they'll do some stuff for school or whatever on the tablet, but it's very regimented, and there's a lot of oversight on that because otherwise they just get unruly. But on an airplane, I actually think it works really well because it's such a significant event that it's got a very clear-cut beginning and ending, and when you get off the plane, there's so much like, okay, we got to grab all the luggage, we got to go through, you can get the baggage from the carousel, we got to get a rental car, whatever, that there's so many other distracting things that are going on that you have a long enough time buffer that your kids forget that they were watching TV and they just move on to the next thing. It's much different than when you're at home. And like Jeff was saying with the car, like, personally, I don't really mind driving. Long trips with the kids or whatever have their own challenges, but at least you can stop, right? Like if somebody has to go to the bathroom, you can stop. If somebody's getting really antsy and they just need to run around for a bit, you can find a pit stop and they can go run around in the grass or whatever. Things that you can't do on an airplane. So I think that you can do it, but it is nice to have even just weekends, even overnights, without the kids, because when they're there, you're always on, right? Like you're always on parent duty. You hear something in the middle of the night and you think, oh, well, maybe one of my kids is stirring. Are they going to get up? They're in an unfamiliar place. Is this going to freak them out? They don't have their nightlight, or they don't see this reflection that they've gotten used to seeing out from the window on their wall, or whatever it is. You're always kind of on as a parent, and especially with small children in unfamiliar places, that can add some other obstacles to having a rejuvenating vacation.
So do you guys do husband-wife vacations annually, twice, every decade? How does that work?
We're on and thankfully for my job, we have annual sales conferences that are usually in very nice places that we've kind of piggybacked, whether we're going before or after the conference, and it's usually in Charleston, South Carolina, or Tucson, Arizona. Really nice locations, but also usually at really nice hotels that we get a nice discounted rate that we can kind of go there and stay at a hotel we wouldn't normally stay at. We believe it's really important for our marriage to take that vacation as spouses, and it's very nice that we're able to do it in kind of conjunction with my flight being paid for by my company and whatever that may be. And obviously I travel for work substantially, so usually Beth's flight is covered by my miles that I accumulate through the year. So it's not a free vacation, but it usually is a little less expensive, and we plan for that vacation every year, and it's kind of something that we look forward to. But yeah, I think it's one of those things that we try to make an effort, and I think that may change with adding a fourth to the mix here in the fall. But yeah, I think it's something that we'll always strive to do and look to find different ways that we can get away, whether it's and oftentimes it's just for 2 or 3 days in a weekend, but looking at ways that we can maybe extend it for milestone anniversaries or whatever it may be, that we can kind of quote unquote reconnect for that one time a year. And it's just kind of nice to explore a new place with your spouse that maybe I've been to but she hasn't, or she has or I haven't, and we kind of be each other's tour guides.
I don't disagree with any of that, Jeff, but it is difficult. I think the more kids you have, getting away without kids becomes increasingly difficult because you have to find somebody who's willing to watch your kids while you're gone. And I mean, we're lucky enough to have both of our parents locally, so if push came to shove, I don't think that would be an issue for us. But I do have an issue with the cost of it. I wouldn't say that I'm like a miser or anything like that, but I have a hard time spending a couple $1,000s on a week-long vacation. My preference,
you got to come backpacking, bro. It's only $15.
My preference would be to whatever, put that money towards, to be honest, a new TV or something that I'm going to get use out of over and over again, or put it towards my mortgage or whatever. And Maureen and I are actually having the kind of a conversation about this now, because next year, in about a year and 15 days, will be our 10-year anniversary, and she wants to go do something, and I don't really want to go do something. Like, we have some other goals that we're working towards, and I don't really want to go on vacation. And some of that is just, it's like anything else, right? Like, you don't exercise for a while, and then it just becomes very easy to continue to not exercise. And the same thing can go for vacation and maybe relationships at large, right? We talked about going on vacation for shared experience, right? And like, that's how you build relationships, friendships, marriage, or otherwise, on shared experience. So I do think that vacations together, especially just as husband and wife, are important. But there are also other things that are important, and right now we're kind of working our way through that.
Yeah, I want to get to how we can be a witness on our vacations, but I want to get to, Jeff has some unique experiences with traveling for work, but also I know that the Morgans also go camping quite a bit. So are those, you guys use those as like little mini connections, or just getting out and having fun, or how do you guys, you guys camp quite often in the summer, but you're not going like to, Glacier National Park. You guys go to like, the state parks and those type of things. So how do you guys use those?
Yeah, I think the state parks are great getaways from a standpoint of, it's not going to cost you airfare and hotel fare. It's going to cost you whatever the stay is at that state park, whether it's via camping, or oftentimes they offer cabins that allow for glamping, that they have oftentimes stoves and other things in the cabins, which I feel like would be right up your alley.
Do they have showers?
Glamping?
They do have showers.
They're called lakes.
Never have I ever been camping.
What?
We'll have to change that.
Are you serious?
Bring the trailer.
Oh my goodness!
We got a blackout tent ready
man.
ready and willing for the Truler kids to bunk up with the Morgan kids.
I think the dude's got to take a backpacking trip. We can talk about the father-son backpacking trip sometime, but man, those are priceless. Those are priceless. So you guys go to state parks. What have you found value in those? You love them. I know you wouldn't keep doing them if you didn't. So
no, and it's something that my wife and her family growing up did very frequently throughout their childhood, and it's very important to my wife. And if I had my ways, I wouldn't go camping. Just being honest,
you sound like Gaffigan.
I've come to I've come to enjoy it. It is oftentimes you get to a spot where your phone doesn't work from service, although
isn't that the best?
Verizon and T-Mobile have upped their game and normally can get to pretty much any state park. But no, and I think it is something that allows for a retreat in And I think that's something that we'll look as our kids get older and are willing and able to go hiking and different stuff in different national parks. I know Beth's been to pretty much every state that has a national park just with her family and their camper. But yeah, I think it is something that we'll end up doing, but it's not on my foreseeable for future plan.
Seems like a lot of work with kids.
And I think that's, I mean, for any
It
vacation.
actually isn't. I find it to be way less work because you can only, like for us, we go backpacking, which means you can only take what you can carry. And currently, we have a 2.5-year-old that we're still carrying, so that even limits us even more. So I carry about 60 pounds of stuff, and Shelly carries Teresa. She's about 33 pounds right now. And then, she'll carry like pillows and some clothes and maybe a little food or some snacks. But like, I find it it's super simple. We get out to a campsite. We don't go too far, and we let Teresa hike on her own as much as she can. We'll go out like 3 to 5 miles, which is an easy little walk, little hike in the mountains. Usually from a trailhead to the campsite, it's obviously like uphill. But then once you get there, there's no cell coverage. You're not going to carry your iPads. They're too heavy. They're worthless. You just carry food and maybe a couple little camp games with, like, we have a little bocce ball camp set that's like these teeny little balls. But like most of the time, Teresa just digs in the dirt and she runs around and she grabs leaves and we hang out in the tent, and it's just awesome. I actually find it quite simplifying. There's no TV. There's no option for any of those things. So you just hang out together. And I love it. I mean, I'll convince you someday. We'll see.
Justin, would you say that you're a person who has an easy time living in the moment?
Yeah. I would say so.
I do not have an easy time living in the moment. I think that actually can be a significant differentiator. I think I would probably be a little bit happier if I could live in the moment more instead of always just thinking about what was next or what I have to do tomorrow or whatever it is. But it struck me from what you said about what you enjoy about those camping trips that, like, you have to be able to be in the moment to enjoy that. And my concern, and this is a fault of mine, is that I would always be thinking about the work that has to be done tomorrow, more hiking or cleaning up the tent or XYZ thing. So that's a barrier for me.
Well, I could see that. However, I think the longer you're out there, the more you can be in the moment.
Yeah.
Because it allows, like, I find the same thing. The first night I'm out backpacking is hectic. My brain is going nuts. I'm still thinking about work. I'm still thinking about the travel. I'm still thinking about all the stuff. And that's actually one of the reasons I love backpacking, is because by day 2 or 3, I forget about all that garbage, because usually by day 2 or 3, something's already happening. You got a little blister going on or something. But you just have to, you almost have to live in the moment, because otherwise you'd either trip on a root or a rock or something else. You just wouldn't have any fun. And I also find it easy to live in the moment when I'm out there. I find it actually harder to live in the moment when I'm in the city, because there's just so much stuff and I'm actually not doing as much, but there's so many like options. When I'm backpacking, there's no options. I'm not going to go on YouTube. I'm not going to go on Facebook. The phone's not even working. It's basically just a camera, and there's no other options to drive to Cub, or there's no options to go to Target. I'm not going to call anyone. So it almost like forces you to live in the moment, and that's what I actually really love about it. I would actually have a really hard time going on vacation where I'm still connected, because I think it would be really hard for me to live in the moment. I would be on the beach thinking about all the other stuff.
And I think something about camping, sleeping under the stars, and I think there's some science behind there, so someone fact check me. Sleeping under a tent or stars really resets. I mean, you're breathing fresh air from the minute you go to bed the minute you wake up. And it's not so much you do that in Airbnb in Kansas City after you eat some barbecue, but it resets your kind of your circadian rhythm that you can go. I mean, that allows you to get in to be in the moment that next day, because it's a nice little nature's reset button for you to get out. But I think what's challenging, and we kind of talked about it earlier, is when you're camping and there's a lot of great Catholic churches around these state parks, but finding one that is close, that has a mass that works, and being able to wash up with a shower or a lake bath. And
yeah, usually those places around campsites, they allow for a little more freedom of stank when you walk in if your toes are a little dirtier than normal.
They're croc friendly.
Yeah, very croc friendly. You'd love it. You'd love it, Adam.
you'd fit right in.
So last thing before we close, I'd love to hear you guys' ideas on how you can witness not only to your family when you're on vacation, because you're not working, so you're with them all the time, and how do you witness the love you have for your kids? Because I think that's another recreation thing that we can do on vacations. Is it's another way to reconnect humanly with everyone we're with. That's why we definitely want to go on vacations with just our wives, and sometimes with the kids, but not always with the kids. But we need to reconnect with our wives, but also a way to witness to maybe even the people you're vacationing with, if you vacation with other people, or just the people out on the beach or whatever else. So maybe you guys' thoughts on how you witness, purposefully or just accidentally while you're vacationing.
Yeah, so Justin, like we had talked about a little bit already, but making sure that going to church, that's non-negotiable, right? Like we've been on vacations with people that aren't practicing or maybe even are, but what if that person that you're with or that family that you're with, they're just waiting for somebody else to make the move, and you're the one that says, okay, we're going to go to this mass at this time in this city, and they come or they don't come, right? But they're seeing that. Oh, where Adam and Maureen and the kids? Oh, they went to mass, right? They see that, and if you go out to dinner or whatever, you take a moment to pray as a family. It doesn't have to be this big, ostentatious show of faith or anything. You just pause to say prayers as a family, and the waiter walks up. They can stand there for 30 seconds while you finish your family prayer. It's not that big of a deal. And I think also, if you're on vacation with your kids, to be intentional about showing them that this vacation is in part a way of like you expressing your love for your children, just like you might take one of your kids aside and read them a book, right? You take a kid aside and you explain to them why we care about mountains, or the significance of the Grand Canyon, or why the Battle of Gettysburg was important, right? You take them aside individually and you explain the significance of the vacation, and they're going to remember that for the rest of their life.
Got anything else, Jeff? I mean, I know you go on work trips a lot. I trust that you're a good witness on those too. So is there a struggle sometimes when you're like with work that you're with people that maybe aren't going to church, or have you found some times where it has been a witness to other people?
Yeah, I think it is. When I go for trips for work and go to different major metropolitan areas primarily, there's usually a cathedral or a basilica or something of prominence in the city that I'm going to, or in Boston, for example, a little Skyway chapel that offers mass probably more times than I think it's 5 or 6 times a day that you can go and go to mass at. But it is something where I'll make a point, whether it's early in the morning or over the noon hour, and noon hour is sometimes harder, or at the end of the day, to find a mass in that city that I'm in to attend. And usually communicating, if I'm traveling with someone, hey, can't do dinner right at 6. I'm be coming for mass, and hey, let's meet at 6:30 and invite them with, or hey, I'd love to have you come with me, and it usually leads to conversation, whether it's at dinner or the next morning over coffee. But it's just a simple witness, and then even at meals with people that you're dining with professionally, taking a minute to pause and pray, whether it's overt or kind of out in public and making the sign of the cross and praying, and it just opens conversation up and allows people to be inquisitive, and whether they are practicing members of the faith or they're fallen or they're not religious or having any affiliation whatsoever, it just allows for maybe a little bit more of a deeper conversation over, aside from talking about sports and the weather at a business dinner.
I think I don't travel a ton for work, maybe 2 or 3 times a year on a busy year, but because I'm more by myself than I am either when I'm in the office or home with my family, I find that I have a lot more opportunity to kind of be introspective and think back about my life and my sins. So I find it actually very, very good time to go to confession. Like, find a local church. Like, you're never gonna see these people ever again. So like,
I'm never. This priest doesn't know me. I can say whatever I need
Let's
to.
get it all out there. You don't, you're
Until
not
you
worried.
come back next time and they're
Right.
like, I remember this guy.
But you're not dealing with bedtimes or breakfast or anything. So take advantage of it if you can, and go partake in the sacraments.
Yeah, I love it. It's been good to hear what you guys have said. I think one of the underlying things is be intentional about your vacation. Don't just think like, well, what is everyone else doing? What are we going to do for them? And also, I think you can evangelize, like Adam was saying, you can evangelize just by being faithful. Your witness of saying, I'm going to Mass right now, I'll meet you later, or you're with a group of people or you're up at the cabin or wherever you are, even in the summer, like, let's be honest, Mass attendance is down in the summers. And Jesus is still here in the summers, but for some reason, people go to cabins or whatever else. It's nice out. The convenience of going to Mass is, for some reason, lower. But, just being faithful is a witness to other people. And like you said, Adam, that other person might just be waiting for an invite to go to Mass. Like, hey, we're going to Mass. Would you like to join us? And maybe they go to Mass, and maybe that plants a seed in their head, and maybe it doesn't. But at least you're showing them, we're taking this seriously. In 2020, there's a family that we love our faith, and we're not going to take a break, and we're not going to take a vacation from church when we're on vacation. So we'll do quick shout-outs here. We want to keep these shorter in general, but we want to do a quick shout-out. Tonight I'm going to shout out just like people that have kind of inspired me on vacations. So I'm going to shout out one of my older brothers, Chris, who lives out in Colorado. He introduced me not only to biking, but to backpacking and camping. I wouldn't say I was averse to it. We just didn't do it as a family. We didn't go camping as a family. My dad was a really huge guy. I couldn't even imagine him going backpacking. That would have been hilarious. My dad was like 6'8", 330 pounds when he was skinny. So I couldn't imagine him out there backpacking. That would have been hilarious. Much less my mother. Oh, my goodness. But he inspired me to go camping. He invited me. I went there. I went to visit him in Colorado probably twice a year. And, and I lived with him for a summer, and I bought my first backpack. I bought my first tent. I bought my first sleeping bag. And I'm still sleeping in that sleeping bag, and I still use that backpack every once in a while. I got a new one just because we have a girl, and I got to carry a heck of a lot more now that I'm married. But shout out to my older brother Chris for taking me on those vacation trips when I went out to visit him, and being hospitable when I went to go see him.
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to the Sweeney family. When I was in high school, 3 summers in a row, or I guess college, I guess it was, 3 summers in a row, we drove from here to Ocean City, Maryland to stay with my friend Matt Sweeney's family in their condos there in Ocean City. And that was my first vacation really as an adult. And then also the Ashes, Mr. and Mrs. Ash, took me along on 2 vacations to Montana with their family. It's the first time I got to see mountains, and went to Glacier National Park and Grand Tetons and Yellowstone. So those were a couple of great vacations. Inspired me to want to take my wife and my kids on on similar trips. So I'd like to thank both those families for letting me vacation with them.
My shout out would be towards my parents were very intentional about vacationing and making sure that that was a prominent part of our childhood, because that was something that they didn't have growing up. And I think that carried over into our child rearing and parenting and ensuring that our kids have that experience. And it's both vacations via airplane and car rides, because I think car rides can be a whole heck of a lot more fun. But I think they really instilled that it's something that you save for, and you save for vacations because it is important, and it's probably oftentimes more important vacations than a ton of gifts under the Christmas tree at the end of the year. But yeah, and I think they really instilled that seed into my psyche to ensure that was something I brought to the table as a parent.
Well, it's good to sit down with you guys again and get your input on Catholic vacations, what it means to you. Give us some feedback. Where do you guys go on vacations? What choices do you make? What are the non-negotiables for you? You can comment on all of our social media and YouTube videos, especially this one you're watching right now or listening to. Let us know where you guys go on vacation. Let us know places that you like to go, things that you like to do, churches you've seen. I think Jeff was mentioning one of the churches he loved to see out in Houston, I think it was, right?
Yeah, one of the cathedrals in Houston. So, yeah, if you guys have any recommendations for other beautiful churches or cathedrals or good restaurants for us to visit when we go.
Yeah, we love to have good eats, good eating.
That's very important.
Let us know other topics you want us to cover, too.
Yeah, let us know what you guys want us to hear, or if you don't want to hear us anymore, we can get rid of all of our talking heads as well. We will be doing podcasts with Walking with Purpose ladies, so if you're complaining about hearing too much of the male voice on this podcast, we are cognizant of that as well. We do want to have a group of ladies come and talk about what that means for them. We have a wonderful Walking with Purpose group here at Transfiguration, and it's been a great source of grace here at Transfiguration. So join us again. We'd love to hear from you, give your feedback, and God bless.